Chapter 72. Coincidence finds Gong Sheng. Bat Ancestor. This is Doyuan's honored guest. You've been rude. A voice accompanied by a blanket of snow boomed through the four directions of the 5UA Academy. A single finger. Resolving the Great War in the Five Mountains Academy. Nearly all the people in the city's face changed, followed by a look of excitement. Your Majesty, Your Majesty's divine might. Long live His Majesty. Long live His Majesty. It's His Majesty. His Majesty has struck. Amidst the excitement of the people in the city, they were also shocked beyond words. A single finger, just one finger, and it ended the great battle. The incomparably powerful Bat Ancestor just now was still less than the might of a single finger of a great emperor. The faces of the people were filled with pride. This is my great Emperor Daiwan. In the middle of the city, in the small courtyard, Sima Changkong and Long Shenwu both raised their eyebrows and looked in the direction of the palace together. Great Emperor Shu, Long Shenwu said in a deep voice. With the opening of the upper heavenly palace, there is indeed a world of difference. A shock flashed through Sima Changkong's eyes as well. Long Shenwu nodded. In the city, the anxious very Wanneress figure lurched and immediately revealed a hint of joy as the fighting outside the city stopped. Outside of the city, the Wuxia Academy. Heavy snow was flying, and the countless bats had all long since frozen. King Shikong and the other group of Dayuan officials, on the occasion of hearing that voice, also steeped their faces in joy. Greetings to His Majesty. Long live His Majesty. The crowd of officials bowed in respect. Agu, Myos, Chongsheng, who had fallen to the ground, rubbed his bum and stood up. Was that the power of the heavenly palace just now? Upper heavenly palace. Ziwei was slightly stunned and turned his head to the south. Li Shenji's face was gloomy, but his body swayed to where Long Wenyu's flying boat was. It was clear that he wanted to protect Long Wenyu. Brother-in-law, are you all right? Long Wenyu said, anxiously. In the distance, Guhai retreated with Bingji and turned his head towards the direction of Metropolis City. Guhai's eyes narrowed slightly, and his heart was also shaken beyond words. The power of the Bat Ancestor had been thoroughly recognized by Guhai, and even Guhai felt that the Bat Ancestor hadn't done his best yet. But such a powerful Bat Ancestor was actually flicked away by a single finger of Emperor Shu. The Bat Ancestor's face also changed as he turned his head to look towards the city. Shu, aren't you in seclusion? Coming out to stir up my business again? The Bat Ancestor shouted in a depressed manner. Obviously, the Bat Ancestor also understood that he was definitely not as strong as Great Emperor Shu. In the distance, at the entrance of the Great Greatness Hall, Great Emperor Shu placed his right hand in his sleeve and looked out of the city with a flat gaze. I was in seclusion, but I was woken up by you all, Great Emperor Shu faintly said. The voice was not loud, but, strangely, it traveled through the sky full of drifting snow to the Wuxia Academy. Bat Ancestor's face flushed with impatience. Is this blaming me? I deserve to die for my sins, King Shikong instantly said bitterly. Obviously, the culprit for today's big commotion was still King Shikong, making such a big commotion, disturbing His Majesty's seclusion. My business. It's not like you don't know how this stinky girl insulted me back then. I want to get it back. Also, that will enter the wine is gone. I want Guhai to write me another one. Bat Ancestor shouted at once, as if he was negotiating with King Shikong. Hey, King Shikong's face turned slightly cold. King Shikong didn't say anything else. He just stared at Bat Ancestor with cold eyes. But just this one look caused the previously lawless Bat Ancestor to instantly stiffen his face, as if he was somewhat afraid. Big deal. I won't force Guhai, but this stinking girl. The Bat Ancestor still wanted to put conditions in general. Go back to your Bat Valley, Great Emperor Shu said flatly. Although his tone was flat, it had an unmistakable implication. Me, the Bat Ancestor was instantly depressed. Great Emperor Shu just looked at Bat Ancestor coldly. And this look seemed to be very intimidating to Bat Ancestor. And looking at Bat Ancestor, his mouth opened several times, but he didn't dare to continue. HMPH. The Bat Ancestor let out a cold snort, threw out his big sleeves, and flew towards the west of the city. Whew! In the twinkling of an eye, Bat Ancestor's figure disappeared in front of the crowd. Gu Hai looked towards the Shu Emperor in the distance, but he raised his eyebrows. The Bat Ancestor was so powerful that even in front of him, he didn't dare to disobey even for a second. In the city, countless people but worshipfully looked in the direction of the Great Yor Temple. The Great Emperor has never been powerful. The Daiyuan officials, however, let out a long breath. Who? At this time, Long Wenyu's flying boat flew steeply in front of Gu Hai. Gu Hai brought Bing Ji and stepped onto the flying boat. Gu Hai focused on the great Jaya Hall in the distance, but he didn't notice that the eyes of Bing Ji, who was on the side, looked at himself with an extra hint of something different. Great Emperor Shu drank away the Bat Ancestor and turned his head towards Long Wenyu's flying boat. Great Qian Emissary. Great Emperor Shu looked at the top of the flying boat suspiciously. Before Gu Hai and his party could say anything, the Shikong King on the side immediately said respectfully, "Your Majesty. These are the Great Qian Emissaries. Before, when Your Majesty was in seclusion, my ministers didn't dare to disturb them. So they received them at the Wu Yu Academy, but they didn't want to." Great Emperor Shu twisted his head and glanced around the city. One side of the metaphysical light mirror was broadcasting everything in the Wu Yu Academy live. Great Emperor Shu instantly realized everything. Mo Yike, Great Emperor Shu suddenly spoke. "I am here." Among the officials, Mo Yike immediately stepped forward. "I can't be disturbed during my seclusion this time." Now Mo Yike has full authority to receive the Daoqian envoys. So as not to lose the Great Yuan etiquette, Great Emperor Shu commanded. "I obey," Mo Yike respectfully said. Once Great Emperor Shu ordered King Shikong, but his face changed. This kind of thing is usually handled by himself, or His Majesty actually named Mo Yike to take care of it, obviously dissatisfied with himself, or but the previous reception he had completely messed up. His Majesty did not count, already the greatest gift, but did not dare to argue with His Majesty. Great Emperor Shu ordered Mo Yike and glanced at King Shikong. This glance caused King Shikong to instantly turn ashen, bowing his head and not daring to say anything. Turning, King Shikong once again looked above the flying boat. "I haven't finished business here, so for the time being, Mo Yike will receive you all. Forgive me," Great Emperor Shu solemnly said. Long Wenyu crossed her eyebrows, as if she was still haunted by her brother-in-law's distress just now, and was about to argue. Gu Hai, however, pulled Long Wenyu and shook his head. "Brother-in-law, what are you pulling me for?" "I haven't said it yet. If Daiyuan is so dangerous, let's go back and forget about it," Long Wenyu shouted at once. "Forget it," Gu Hai shook his head. After all, there was still the Gongyang Sheng to find on this trip. It was not the time to leave yet. Long Wenyu wanted to seek justice for her brother-in-law, but her brother-in-law said forget it. So she could only hold in a wave of discomfort and prepare to go back to Emperor Shu. Long Wenyu's eyes glared and rose in anger. However, it was the Shu Great Emperor who didn't even wait for Long Wenyu's forgiveness, but turned his head and entered the Great Jaya Hall. Shu Great Emperor turned around and left this way. Mo Yike was the one who immediately arrived close. "County Lord Wenyu, Mr. Gu, Camp Lordly, forgive me. His Majesty is in seclusion. Just now he was able to come out of seclusion to resolve a misunderstanding for us. It's already a rare occurrence. Please forgive me," Mo Yike said with a smile. HMPH, Long Wenyu let out a cold snort, still very dissatisfied. Li Shenji also had a cold face. "Mr. Mo, long time no see," Gu Hai said with a smile. When Gu Hai opened his mouth, but Mo Yike looked at Gu Hai gratefully This was Gu Hai rounding up for himself. Yes, after the last farewell, it's really been a long time since I played against Mr. Gu. I've been looking forward to it for a long time. Mr. Gu, County Master Wen Yu, Camp Master Li. It's getting late. Why don't we first enter the city and rest in my residence? Mo Yaika arranged. Long Wen Yu had anger in her heart and was somewhat reluctant. Good. Then I'll trouble Mr. Mo. Gu Hai, however, answered with a bang. Seeing that her brother-in-law had answered, Long Wen Yu could only say, all right, don't have someone trying to sneak up on us again then. No, thank you Mr. Gu. Mo Yaika immediately looked at Gu Hai gratefully. Ziwei and Chong Sheng, why don't you come with us? Gu Hai called out to the duo who had become smaller not far away. Managing food, Ziwei's eyes lit up. Tube full, Mo Yaik instantly laughed bitterly. These two didn't forget to eat at all times. But ever since Gu Hai's piece of chivalry and willing to whine, Mo Yaik was also curious about the two. Mo Yaika could know what Gu Hai was capable of, and the two people Gu Hai held in such high esteem. Wouldn't they be the easy ones? Bucket. Not only that simple, right? Mo Yaik invited, and the crowd followed Mo Yaik towards the city, leaving behind an icy Wu Yu Academy, which at this moment had long been in a mess. King Shikong looked at his own academy, revealing a bitter smile, turning his head to look in the direction that the ancient sea flying boat had left, but a trace of resentment flashed in his eyes. Will the wine go into the wine? Chivalry. After today, it will surely be famous in the world, and he himself will surely be famous in the world. A villain who has to make up for his treats, slanders heroes, and can't afford to spend any money. Chivalry and general wine, elevating the image of Gu Hai, Ziwei, and Chong Sheng, and stepping on himself even more ruthlessly. Would King Shikong be comfortable in his heart? More importantly, his own scheming had instead caused the Daiwan Imperial dynasty to lose face, and even His Majesty had a grudge against him. How could King Shikong resent Gu Hai? The sky was gradually getting dark, however, the hearts of the people of Metropolis were still on fire. Whether it was the two articles, or Bat Ancestor's strike, or more importantly, His Majesty's strength, it made it difficult for countless cultivators to sleep through the night. When Gu Hai arrived at Mo Yaika's residence, Mo Yaika didn't bother him much, and after a little arrangement, he let Gu Hai and his party rest first. Only after each person had arranged for a place to stay did Gu Hai curiously look at Long Wen Yu. Wen Yu, aren't you able to avoid evil? Why didn't you feel it earlier? Gu Hai curiously said. I didn't predict the danger. I don't know. Long Wen Yu shook her head. Oh, that's right. I was the one who thought wrong. This is Metropolis City. Shu Great Emperor's territory. No matter what, Shu Great Emperor would have made a move, so we're definitely not in danger. Gu Hai nodded. However, that Bat Ancestor is so annoying, really annoying. Earlier when he left, I was worried that he would come back to look for trouble again, so I predicted the future. But luckily, he won't be coming back. Instead, he's in the middle of lashing out at a man, Long Wen Yu said with a hateful voice. Oh, a man, Gu Hai said doubtfully. Yeah, a huge pool of blood. There's a white man trapped inside. Oh yeah, I saw that Bat Ancestor called him Gong Sheng, Long Wen Yu curiously said. Ramsant. Gu Hai opened his mouth in shock. Is this considered found?